Alright guys, so today we're going to be talking about the connection between ZZ Top and Motorhead. Yes, there's a huge connection between these two bands. Motorhead is a very unique kind of band. But before I get started, if this is not loud enough, just turn up the speaker volume on your end. I'm speaking as loud as I can. I'm basically streaming this because I got tired of recording it and then chopping it up and then uploading it back. And if this video turns out to be long, then it's going to be a huge file. So that's all I want to do is stream from now on. So anyway, I didn't know anything about ZZ Top before, other than Motorhead covered ZZ Top. I think in one of their live albums, What's Words Worth, right? It's called a song called Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers. So they cover that song. I think it's on What's Words Worth. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that yet, but I know they've covered it for sure. And then I should know I have 2 copies of that album, but it's hidden somewhere in there. So anyway, so we got that. Beer Drinkers and Hellraisers, they just covered that song. And then also, if you know the song No Class, right? It's basically just that riff, right? It's basically the same riff as the song Tush from ZZ Top. And I mean, I think they just kind of, lifted that. But the song, the melody is different, the lyrics are different, obviously, but that riff right there, the intro riff, sounds very similar. So beyond this, if you look at the lead style of Billy Gibbons, because I didn't know anything about ZZ Top, because I just I never got into them, and then I just thought I was, because it's like, I just thought they were kind of like a joke band, honestly. I don't think that way anymore, but because they kind of look Amish, and then with the beards and everything like that, and I was just like, okay, what could this possibly be? So I never kind of paid attention to it, but I sort of knew, about the songs that Motorhead covered. So then in the last week, I think I heard ZZ Top's first album, which is, I think, 1971, which predates Motorhead. And I listened to that album, and it just sounds a lot of the Fast Eddie Clarke stuff. This is where I'm going with this. It's basically kind of from Billy Gibbons. Now, a lot of Fast Eddie Clarke, came from some of Hendrix, some of the older, black blues players, right? But his style is very unique, right? It's very unique. So you have to wonder where it sort of came from. I love to look at the roots of, where people get influence from. And a lot of times it's not easy to determine that. So with Fast Eddie Clarke, it's like you have all these sort of generic blues players, right? That you kind of heard them on YouTube that sound very similar. They'll sound like an old, like a black, blues player from a long time ago, and they'll just be sort of ripping them off, and they all sound the same. But Fast Eddie Clarke sounds different. And it's like, where did he get this from? And I finally got it. It's the ZZ Top, Billy Gibbons influence. If you listen to ZZ Top, a lot of their solos, and their lead playing sounds a lot like Fast Eddie Clarke. So Fast Eddie Clarke is a big ZZ Top influence player, hence it came into Motorhead. So if you listen to some of ZZ Top, right, they have riffs like, they kind of have that kind of, it's hard to place ZZ Top, I think, because they look like Southern rock, kind of cowboys, or, however you want to think about it. But they have a lot of these kind of what I call like these kind of sleaze rock riffs, right? Which later kind of went into like hair metal, I think. So Fast Eddie Clarke, a lot of his playing kind of sounds ZZ Top-ish. So go listen to a ZZ Top album. Just listen to like the the top the greatest hits or something like that, and you'll hear a lot of Fast Eddie Clarke. You'll hear a lot of like Fastway. You'll hear a lot of solo Fast Eddie Clarke, and also some of the Motorhead stuff like we talked about. So these kind of that kind of sleaze rock riffs, I don't know what other kind of word to describe it other than that, meaning that it's kind of like, I don't know what I mean by that, but it's just kind of that sleaze rock, for lack of a better word. So if you go to Fastway, here's my thing. If you go to Fastway, there's a riff, I think on the first Fastway album, right? That sounds like this. It sounds very ZZ Top-ish. Right? Sounds very sort of uh, the type of riff from that kind of rock era, you know what I mean? Like I said, very ZZ Top-ish. Go listen to ZZ Top. You'll hear a lot of this kind of stuff. So how different is that riff? That's a Fastway riff after, you know, Eddie left Motorhead to this. Anyway, so they sound very similar, right? They're both in A, but it's that kind of feel. I mean, it's not the same riff, obviously, but it's that kind of feel to where I think with Fastway and his solo stuff, he got a little bit more kind of, you know, in that direction to where it's a little bit more commercial, to where Motorhead sounds a little bit more, you know, sinister, a little bit more evil. So those two riffs I played, right, they're both in A, sound very sort of, you know, in the same family of riffs. They're all sort of, I don't want to say derived from ZZ Top, but that ZZ Top-ish kind of rock and roll. So if you listen to ZZ Top, you'll hear a lot of that stuff. Even the lead playing, right? Like this kind of stuff. This is from Capricorn, right? Like that type of lead playing, right? It's all straight from Billy Gibbons. So if you listen to Billy Gibbons solo, right, they sound, Fast Eddie Clarke sounds, you know, a lot like him. And then if you do like this kind of stuff, you know, like in Capricorn where he holds that note, and then, you know, he always does that in a lot of the songs, right? Right? Billy Gibbons does that all the time. I'm not even a ZZ Top fan. I just heard a couple of songs and I'm like, oh shit, that's like exactly sounds very similar. But what Eddie did was he took that influence and then he took it to the next level, right? Then he took it to basically, you know, his own playing, you know, faster licks, faster playing, you know, executing like, you know, like he was on speed. So I think he just sort of went to town with that style. So if you're looking to see the lead playing of Fast Eddie Clarke, listen to the ZZ Top guy, Billy Gibbons. Sounds very similar to this. And then I just thought that was weird because I always thought Motorhead was like, where did this come from? This is so unique. So my thesis here is that it kind of sounds like Motorhead is very influenced by ZZ Top, at least Eddie, since he came up with the riffs for the first couple albums. And he took that, and then you combine that with, like, even Lemmy said Motorhead is more comparable to like the Damned, right? That punk band. Other than, you know, rather than like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden. And he said, you know, we have nothing whatsoever in common with like Judas Priest or Iron Maiden, is that we sound more like the Damned. So if you take like the Ramones, which came out in like 74, and like, you know, the Damned, which is, you know, around that time, 70s, you take that kind of British punk influence, you put that together with ZZ Top. And then, you know, some of the Hawkwind, kind of the up-tempo, you know, Hawkwind, you know, has a lot of up-tempo stuff like tick-tick-tack, 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 you know, that kind of stuff. And I think that's the Motorhead formula here. So you take a little bit of that kind of that, like I said, you know, the precursor to hair metal, I think that kind of sleazy kind of rock, that southern rock, a little bit of that, and then you take a little bit of punk, and then, you know, you give it a little bit of speed, and then, you know, the lyrics are darker, and then, you know, you play loud as fuck, and then you have this sort of punk metal, infused band, and that really is the first Motorhead. So I can totally hear ZZ Top influence on here because the leads sound almost, you know, very similar, right? They sound very similar because nobody plays this kind of stuff, right? That kind of stuff, no one. It's very distinctive, right? And then when I heard ZZ Top, I heard very, you know, similar kind of stuff, similar kind of, you know, holding patterns, similar kind of notes that are kind of accented. So tell me what you think. It kind of blew my mind because I was like, oh shit, that's where he's getting it from. You know, so it's that kind of, and like I said, you know, No Class sounds almost exactly like it, and they covered a ZZ Top song. So I think very much so is that if you kind of take ZZ Top and then give it a little bit of amphetamines, you know, speed it up, put a little bit of punk in there, and, you know, put a little bit of a cop, I don't want to say, you know, accompanying, you know, instruments, but, you know, it's just, and then you make it as loud as possible, then you have Motorhead. So anyway, that's the thing. That's the ZZ Top influence. Tell me what you think. A lot of the lead playing, like I said. Sounds very bluesy, but then it doesn't sound like anybody else. Billy Gibbons seems to be the only reference here. So I never paid any attention to ZZ Top, like I said, because I just thought, I didn't know what they were. I didn't know, like, I just thought they were just kind of, kind of some sort of, like a cowboy, band or something like that from the South. So in a lot of ways, the Brits gave back what the Americans did. They kind of, digested what the Americans did, and then they gave it back to us. If you look at, bands like, the early bands like the Beatles and Rolling Stones, right? They were all influenced by black musicians like, Little Richard, all the, Albert King, a lot of those guys. They just took that, and America wasn't recognizing it because, basically, I hate to say it, but, the sort of the racist kind of atmosphere at that time. And then the Brits kind of took all that in and then turned it into, rock and roll, and then kind of gave it back to us, right? If you listen to a lot of the early rock and roll, right, it's really just that. It came from the black music. They took it, gave it back to us. In this case, they took something Southern rock, that was happening in America, and then the Brits just sort of digested it, infused it with other stuff, and then gave it back to us as Motorhead. And then I think that's why it's so unique. But I love Fast Eddie Clarke's playing, and I'm going to talk a little bit more about probably a few more videos on Motorhead. I don't want to do them all at once. What I do is that I kind of have this little spell of thrash, 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 and then I go all out. And then it's like, okay, now I'm burned out on that. Now I may do Motorhead. But I kind of thought about it, and I said, you know what, I think I'm going to mix it up. A little bit of Motorhead here, a little bit of that. I don't know what my next video is going to be, but I think this is very important. So if you're a Motorhead fan of the first 3 albums, and you're looking to find out, okay, shit, where do they get this influence from? Well, it's ZZ Top. And then, you'll hear a lot of this kind of stuff. Fastway riff. Motorhead riff, right? So it sounds very sort of similar. And then ZZ Top has a lot of those type of, kind of riffs as well. So tell me what you think. And I think that's it for today. I could talk for another 40 minutes, but I'm probably not going to. So I will just leave you with this, and I will talk to you later, right?